reality works. And welcome back, friends, to The Bright Side. Pharmacist Ben here. 844-236-6010 is our number, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have success stories you'd like to share, how you're handling all of this craziness that's out in the world. Seems to be calming down a little bit, but how you've been handling it, if you're still sheltering in place, or if you were, or if you weren't, or if you're wearing a mask. What do you guys think of this whole mask situation? Is the resistance, a lot of people have resistance to wearing masks, is the resistance based on some kind of weird psychology of you can't tell me what to do, some kind of childish or infantile perspective on child-parent relationships, or is it logical? Does it make sense? Does it make sense not to want to wear something that you know is silly? Does it make sense to not to want to wear something that you know is unhealthy? Wearing a mask is not healthy. Wearing a mask is not psychologically healthy. It's not sociologically healthy. Human beings need to see each other. We need to see each other's faces. We need to see each other's smiles to have connection and to have communication. So it's not psychologically healthy. It's not sociologically healthy, and it's not physically healthy to wear a mask. And all in the name of a very unlikely argument that it's protective. It's very unlikely that a mask is protective. In fact, it's almost certainly unlikely. It's almost certainly not likely that a mask is protective. Nonetheless, what do you guys think? There are some communities that are mandating masks. There are some stores that are mandating masks. I tried to get an appointment, a medical appointment, an eye doctor's appointment a couple weeks ago, or last week, for 2 weeks from now, and they said, you're going to have to wear a mask and you're going to have to get your temperature taken. There are now drones that take temperatures, by the way. Have you heard of this? They couldn't use them. There was a public outcry. I think it was in Connecticut, but it's only a matter of time. So what do you guys think of all that? 844-236-6010 is our number. If you want to, and we'll take your calls in our second segment. We're talking to Carol Edmonston in the bottom of the hour, the Doodle Lady. She's got a book called The Healing Power of Doodling. Actually, she has several books about doodling for health. And she speaks from experience. She was diagnosed with cancer, and she used doodling to help her deal with it. The Healing Power of Doodling is her book, and she says you don't have to be a trained artist to benefit from doodling, and she talks about the idea of using, well, she didn't say this, but it's basically spiritual doodling, she calls it sacred doodling. We'll talk to Carol Edmondson, bottom of the hour, 844-236-6010. We'll get your calls this segment. And if you want to purchase longevity products, go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can also purchase longevity products by calling 866-735-2470. And you can sign up to join the Brightside Ben team. We'd love you to join the Brightside Ben team. We can help you build a business. You can have a business. You can supplement your income. You can have a primary source of income if you've been laid off or if you had been furloughed, as they say, which is basically no money. This is an amazing opportunity for $30. All you got to do is, I used to say you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset. I used to say that you have to be a warrior, and you do, but you don't these days. Even if you're not born to be an entrepreneur or a warrior, it behooves you to at least look into this thing. It's a great business opportunity. It involves nutrition, which everybody needs now. The checks are going up. People are buying nutritional supplements like crazy. Longevity's got some great nutritional supplements that are unavailable in health food stores. You can learn about nutrition. You can learn about health. And this is really, like I've been saying since day one, crisis equals opportunity. And the larger the crisis, the bigger the opportunity. We have an opportunity now. You have an opportunity to get control of your financial health, and we all have an opportunity to get control of our physical health. Longevity combines the two, financial health and business health, financial health and physical health. 866-735-2470 if you want more info, or if you want to sign up, or head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. We'll get your calls next segment. Carol Edmondson, bottom of the hour. Have you guys been hearing about the gender gap or the gender difference in people who get COVID? It turns out that men get it more than women. A lot of this has to do with the hormone testosterone. Testosterone is an immune suppressant in the same way estrogen is an immune booster. Estrogen stimulates the immune system. Testosterone drops it. From an evolutionary perspective, you didn't want to have a lot of inflammation, and you didn't want to have a lot of immune response when you're out hunting. So testosterone has, over the course of millions of years, testosterone has been linked to slowing down of the immune system. Of course, this means men deal with autoimmunity less than women. Women are most autoimmune issues are female, but for men, this idea of androgens, which is the technical name for male hormones, this idea of androgens being linked to an increased risk and an increased severity makes perfect sense. In fact, androgen deprivation is actually used to treat cancer, specifically prostate cancer. They'll deprive the body, they'll feminize you, basically. If you have a prostate health issue, and it's very, 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 very common to at least have BPH, at least have, when you're in your 60 or above, or even late 50s, to have issues with getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, or 4 times a night. It's very common. And prostate cancer is very common. And by the way, it's not necessarily deadly. People die with prostate cancer, don't even know it. They don't even know that they had prostate cancer until they do an autopsy, or they do some kind of, after the patient dies, and they do whatever they do after the patient dies, they look and they see prostate cancer, and nobody even knew. Prostate is a fatty gland, and that's the key to understanding how to deal with the prostate. Just like the skin is a fatty organ, and that's the key to understanding how to deal with the skin. And just like the breasts are fatty tissue. The fat system of the body is the key to understanding how to deal with androgenic cancer, as well as other cancers, and the skin. And when I say understanding the fatty system of the body, it means first and foremost distinguishing fats from water. Now, you guys are probably sick of hearing me say that because I say it all the time. It's a primal distinction, and understanding the distinction and understanding how to use it is important for dealing with your health. Your fatty nutrients, there are a lot of reasons here. Fatty nutrients are where the work on the membrane, on the outside part. The outside part of a cell is fatty. The inside part is watery. The fatty nutrients work on the membrane. The membrane is the key to communication. Cells grow by communicating, by talking to each other at the level of the membrane. The membrane is the brain. It's the information processor. Membrane is the brain. We used to think the brain was not that we used to. We colloquially, lay people will say think the nucleus is the brain. Actually, even healthcare professionals will think the nucleus is the brain. No, the nucleus is not the brain. The information processor, which is what a brain is, it takes in information and processes it like a system, information in, information out. It does black box magical things in between. It's all dependent on fats, especially essential fatty acids, essential because you got to get them in the diet, which means if you don't get them into the diet, your cells aren't going to be working correctly. Your fat cells aren't, and EFAs are vital for prostate cancer. In fact, eating the wrong fats is probably one of the main reasons why we're dealing with a prostate cancer epidemic, particularly trans or fat or fried or somehow heavily processed fats. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll be back with you and your phone calls and more good health information right after this. We are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We've got the Doodle Lady, Carol Edmondson, author of The Healing Power of Doodling. I guess anything you do with intention can be healing. I never thought of doodling as being healing. I certainly never thought of it as being a sacred skill, but she calls it sacred doodling skills. Fun and easy. The Doodle Lady will be here to talk about doodling and mindfulness and good health, good mental health. At the bottom of the hour, we'll get your calls this segment. 844-236-6010 is our number if you want to purchase longevity products, or even better, if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team. Call 866-735-2470 or head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Treatments, Truth Skin Health products. We've got Mother's Day specials. A really neat Mother's Day kit is up it comes in a little kind of carrying case. It's really super cool. We have it up at truthtreatments.com. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our True Skin Health products. This is a concept. Truth Treatments are based on a formulation concept that I developed in a compounding pharmacy, and boy, does it ever work. I am blown away by the reviews that we're getting, and all you got to do is just look on Facebook or Instagram or just Google True Treatment reviews, and you'll just get all kinds of. Now that they've been out in the public domain for 5 years or so, you'll see all kinds of testimonials. TruthTreatments.com, TruthTreatments.com. We'll get your calls here in just a sec, so hang tight. So we were talking before we went to break about the androgenic connection, the male hormone connection to the immune system. There's also something very interesting that's going on with this viral infection that is going around, and that involves the blood. And this will come as no surprise to anybody who's been listening to me talk or listen to this program. It will come as no surprise that there is a very important and under-recognized link between blood thickening and risk for viral infection. And not just infection. For symptoms, and even worse for hospitalization, and God forbid for respiratory ventilation needs. You do not want to go on a ventilator, people. If you go, I don't know anybody who's had to deal with this personally, but I'm telling you, if you know anybody, or if you yourself have to deal with being hospitalized, you don't want a ventilator unless you are out of it and you can't have no other options. One of the things that's happening is they're noticing that there's blood problems here, and it specifically involves blood thickening. I've been talking about this phenomena for decades, since I first heard about it, that blood thickening is linked to disease and risk for disease, and blood thickening is a sign of toxicity. Patients who have severe infection, that is, who are symptomatic, have issues with clotting, have issues with coagulation. Patients with severe, this is from reading from the British Journal of Hematology. Patients with severe COVID-19 infections presented with clotting issues, coagulation issues. This clotting and coagulation is technically caused by a chemical called fibrinogen. It's fibrosis. This is what clotting is. It's fibrosis. When we talk about sticky blood, we're talking about fibrotic blood. Fibers in the blood. Fibers are a sign of protection. Fibers are one of the ways we die. Fibers are one of the ways we get sick. All chronic disease has some element of fibrosis associated with it. And when your blood is fibrotic and clotting and sticky and sludgy and dirty and whatever metaphor you want to use, you're more prone to disease. And this particular thing that we're dealing with has a very important blood component. So what is that telling us? It's telling us we should be working on the blood. Yes, we should be working on the immune system. We talk about that a lot, but we should also be working on the blood. We should be working to thin the blood. We should be using nutrition to thin the blood. We should be using detoxification to thin the blood. We should be using oxygen to thin the blood. Longevity has great blood thinning products. One of the best ones, or formulations, one of the best ones is the Fuchs Z. Fuchs is a great blood thinner. That's one of its claims to fame, the Fuchs Z. Everybody knows about niacin and zinc, or I shouldn't say niacin, but everybody knows about zinc and vitamin C. Niacin is one of those hidden immune boosters that everybody should be using, as is selenium, but we don't talk about the blood. Oxygenation is very important for thinning the blood, and it's no accident that there's an oxygen issue going on. Between oxygen and coagulation, you've got two major places in addition to the immune system where we can work, where we don't have to frickin' stay locked up in our house. Excuse me, just got mad there when I think about these things. These intrusive, fascist, heavy-handed, out of proportion protocols or solutions that we've come to accept are not necessary if we understand biology and immunology and how the body works. It's pure ignorance. Pure ignorance. Now, it may not be willful ignorance. It may not necessarily be pure ignorance. There may be some stuff going on here. Nonetheless, that we buy into it, that lay people buy into it, is only because we don't understand the basics. I'm talking the basics of how the body works. And that's costing us. That's costing us our freedom, and it's costing us our liberty, and in addition to, of course, costing us our longevity and our health. Understanding how the body works is so darn important. And also, it's part and parcel with understanding how the mind works. Understand how we work. Man, know thyself, as the Delphic Oracle said, as it's in ancient Greece. All right, 844-236-6010 is our number. Let's go to Georgia and say good morning to our friend Don. What's up, Don?
Hey, Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing good. What words of wisdom do you have for us today?
Well, this whole thing is crazy. I'm sitting outside. I'm getting some sun. I'm drinking
for
my
you.
green smoothie. I'm having
Good for you.
some Coke with nuts. And I'm just amazed. Well, not really amazed, but the memes that have completely taken over society.
Yeah, the memes, the mind viruses, right?
Yeah, the mind viruses are at an all-time high. No one's listening. They told us not to wear a mask. They laughed at us, actually, in the beginning when they said, don't wear a mask. It does nothing for you.
Yeah. And now, all of a sudden, a mask is necessary. You can't go to Whole Foods without a mask.
You can't go to Whole Foods without a mask. And I'm in Georgia. It's 80-something degrees, and people aren't realizing. They also told us that heat kills the virus. Well, how can you breathe deeply with a mask on?
How are you going to breathe with a mask on? Isn't that crazy? No, you will breathe. You'll just be breathing in your own carbon dioxide that's supposed to be exhaled, any kind of toxins that are supposed to be exhaled, and the crap from the mask, whatever kind of mask you're wearing.
Yeah. So, the memes are at an all-time high.
Right.
Agenda 21 is definitely in effect. These plans have been going on for a while now.
Right.
And it just seems like they're carrying out,
Yeah, but it doesn't work, Don. It doesn't work unless we're complicit.
Well,
Do you get that?
The whole thing. That's the whole thing, is that now the boogeyman is an unseen thing, the virus.
Yeah,
so
the boogeyman.
And has everyone fighting against each other.
Yeah, and that's a very, very good point. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. The divisiveness that's now, the lines have been drawn, and that's very important, and that might even be part of the whole, one of the mechanisms involved in this entire COVID-19 machinery that's going on. All right, Don, we have a guest at the bottom of the hour. Call back tomorrow. I'd love to talk more with you. Thank you so much. Take care. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. We've got the Doodle Lady coming up at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to The Bright Side. Okay, we are back on The Bright Side, and we're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific and 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page at brightsideben.com. Also, search engine is up at benfuchsarchive.com. Thanks, Peter, in the UK, for setting that up. And we've got all the longevity products at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products, all formulated in my compounding pharmacy to heal the skin, because healing is beauty. Truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. All right, I'm excited to have our guest on, Carol Edmonston. I randomly just ran into her information, and I gave her a call. I said, I want to get you on the air because she has a book. She has a specialty, and she writes about doodling. She has a book called The Healing Power of Doodling, which is a very easy to read and very helpful and very insightful book. And upon delving into Carol's work, I found out that she is a spiritual lady. And I've always said that it's SMEP, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. If you want to be healthy, you got to be firing on all cylinders. You got to be working on all the levels. We talk about health on this program, about chemistry and about nutrition, but we also talk about the mental and emotional nature, and of course the spiritual nature transcends it all. Please welcome to the Bright Side, Carol Edmonston. Hello, Carol.
Good morning. How are you?
It's so nice to talk to you. You know, Wayne Dyer, I'm sure you know who Wayne Dyer is. He wrote a book many years ago called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. I think that was the title, but it was something along those lines. And I always like to look for ways that you can use things in your life spiritually, eating spiritually and walking spiritually and talking to your mother or your wife or your spouse spiritually. And there's all kinds of ways we can access spirituality, but I never thought of doodling. So tell us about how you came. First of all, you have an interesting story. You have some personal health things that you've successfully dealt with. So how did you come to this idea of the spiritual nature of doodling, and how is it the end result of what you've gone through in terms of your personal experience, in terms of your health, that is?
Well, let me start by saying that I was one of the first people who thought I'd lost my mind to think that something that sounds so mindless and frivolous could have had such a profound impact in my life, because I really was in the world as a pretty much a left-brain person. I liked things to make sense and be logical. And as you had mentioned, I've had some personal, what happened for me is I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1995, and then exactly 2 years later had another diagnosis of breast cancer. By that time, I'd already been on a spiritual path and learning about the power of meditation and, just learning how to kind of silence that mind and be able to step into a quiet, deep space and really discover the essence of who I was. But one day I was at a doctor's office waiting for some test results, nervously waiting for test results. And my mind was just running wild, imagining all sorts of what-if scenarios. What if it's positive? What if I find out that something is going to come back and I'm going to lose my life? What about my son, my husband? So I got up from my chair and I thought I need to do something, or else when they take my vital signs, they'll be off the chart. So I asked the nurse for a piece of paper and a pencil. And I just went back to my seat, and I just started to aimlessly doodle. And the more I got lost in this spontaneous moment in time, I recognized that my mind wasn't wandering all over, imagining all sorts of scary scenarios. But I kept doing it when I came home, because by the time I left that office, I realized that I think I stumbled into something powerful, but I had no idea what it was. And it really took off from that point. And I ended up, buying a little plain blank doodle journal that I just kept all my art in. And that's pretty much how I got started with it. But it really led me down a path to really contemplate and think about, because some of the art that was coming out of me I was surprised. I was a paint by the number. Do you ever remember that, the paint by the number sets as a kid? You
Absolutely.
couldn't make a mistake. You'd find a number on the paper and a number on the pencil, and you'd match them up, and you'd create beautiful art. And I was a paint by the number kid. I was certainly not an artist. But when I got lost in this creative moment in time, and my mind wasn't wandering into all sorts of everything out there in the world, worrying about, what's going to come and what was, that I really created some amazing pieces of art. And so I really, from that point on, started to really look into, what the possible meaning and how this could impact me.
So it strikes me that doodling and paint by numbers are a primal distinction. Like we could call it left brain, right brain, or we could call it intuition, logic. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can make this distinction, but it's primal. It's basic. Doodling,
right,
we can live our lives as doodlers, or we can live our lives as doodlers, or paint by numbers, or kind of combine them both, which is probably the best way.
Well, I had a really interesting, thing that popped up for me. When I started doing the doodling, I wasn't trying to create something that my mind could vision, like a bird, a building, a plant. I created the outline, and I don't know, it just bubbled to the surface. If you were to take your pen right now and just put it on a piece of paper, and then maybe the time it just takes you to take a breath in and a breath out, just let your pen wander over that paper without lifting it off the paper and make a squiggle, an abstract squiggle, trying to begin and end at the same point. And, just do it in a matter of maybe 5 seconds. What you end up with is something that looks like a mess. It just looks like an abstract nothing. And then I would go back and fill it in with whatever I wanted, stars, hearts, lines, anything I could imagine. And that's when the magic started happening for me, and I saw what I ended up creating, and it's like, how did this happen? Where did this come from? And, in life, there are so many times when we experience unexpected events, and we're going through a major turmoil right now. We don't really have control over that, and but we have control over the choices we make and how we want to respond to something. And when I started asking myself the question, well, what does that have to do with the art, and what does that have to do with the journey through cancer? Well, I started looking at things, strangely enough, through time zones. Am I living in the past? Am I living in the present? Am I living in the future? And, the past represents so much of the regrets, the what ifs. The what ifs that live in the unknown future, trying to figure out scenarios. and the if-onlys from yesterday, from the past. But yet, when we stumble and try and stay in that space of the present moment, that's where we can really tap into our own inherent wisdom and the strength and the courage we need to really navigate through most of what comes into our life. And that's what the doodling was, because the abstract, the outline you just made in a matter of 5 seconds, well, you had no idea from beginning to end what it was going to look like. But then you do now have the choice in how you want to fill it in.
Oh my goodness, that's so powerful. That is so powerful. So doodling is kind of like this idea of filling in, of like taking the unexpected and then filling it in with your own response. That's that's a metaphor for living life. The doodling thing that you're doing is a metaphor for living life. All right, so I got so many questions I want to ask you. We got to take a break, Carol. We're talking to Carol Edmondson. The book is The Healing Power of Doodling, and it's called Sacred Doodling, and that's what I really want to talk about in our next segment, the sacred aspect and the spiritual aspect to it. We're talking to Carol Edmondson. You're listening to The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll be back after this. All right, we're back on The Bright Side talking to the Doodle Lady about sacred doodling. Carol Edmondson is is an author and a speaker and a just motivational person, I guess you'd say. The name of the book, the title of the book is The Healing Power of Doodling. Carol, there's this mathematician named Rudy Rucker, and he writes books for lay people, and he has a concept he calls gnarly, and he says mathematical formulas sometimes are gnarly. When you say doodling, that's kind of what I think of. Like, life is a doodle. It's not like a representational art form. It's a doodle. It's abstract. It has ups and downs, and we don't know what's coming up around the corner. But the brain likes certainty. Human beings like certainty. How do you reconcile those two things? What the brain likes from the natural doodling nature of life?
I loved certainty, and what I discovered in my life, I was very good at connecting the dots, beginnings, middles, and ends. I did a lot of event work, and when everything was, I was in control, I felt very safe. And breast cancer came into my world and plopped me right into an unknown middle. And the great life lesson for me was for me to discover what faith and trust were all about being so totally present that I could trust a process, that to stay out of worrying about, is breast cancer going to, be a death sentence for me? Is my child going to lose his mother, my husband, a wife, etc.? I became so lost in a spontaneous moment in time, just really swept away by this carefree moment, and fixated in the moment I was in, and only that moment. Because I had been studying, meditation for a number of years, I had to continually ask myself the question, if I could connect and create beautiful art, having no sense of really what I was doing artistically, and watching that I was just so peaceful and quiet creating that piece of art, could I not do the same while I journeyed through something that on the outside seemed to be so scary and frightening? And again, I discovered really what faith and trust were all about for me, and it is, this is why the doodling became sacred in a way for me, because it was really helping to connect the dots between the outer stress I was experiencing and the inner calm that's a part of my nature, a part of all of our natures. So the pen took on a life of its own.
Are you saying that? Are you saying that when you were in the doodling process, that took you into the present? That the process itself of doodling made you be present? Is that what you're saying? It
became an open eye meditation for me. It was my meditation. I did, when you do something that's abstract and your mind isn't figuring out, well, have I done the tree perfectly? Have I made the building, the landscape perfectly? But when you step into an abstract moment in time, like the way I created the outlines, I had no idea what a finished product was going to look like. I'll tell you an interesting story. I had gone into a first and second grade classroom with children because I love taking this. That's a stressed out demographic, and just to give children a creative tool to just kind of walk through, boredom or stress in their lives. But I was only doing my art in black and white because I felt safer. I'm a recovering perfectionist, quite honestly. But these kids had all these Astro Bright gel pens, and I was walking around the room, and I couldn't believe how beautiful their art looked. It looked like stained glass. And so I went in there as a teacher and left as a student, and the kids really taught me a lesson about just trusting. When you look at some of my art, and your listeners can go to the website, thedoodlelady.com, there's some of my art up there. But really what pushed me to really discover, a truth for me was, and how to look at breast cancer in light of my whole life and everything else, is if you look at any one little arc, any one little section of a doodle when I finished it, well, maybe one little twist and turn up there was my journey through cancer, but maybe another part of it was a happier time when I got married, or when I had a child, or when I celebrated holidays with my parents and family. So I look back and I think, well, you know what? Even though we have hard chapters in our life to journey through, when you step back and look at the bigger picture, you have created a masterpiece. It all boils down to the choices we make along the way. And I think we have the power to create wellness in our own lives, just being very mindful of those choices, but also being very mindful to recognize the stress we have going on in our lives and to give it voice.
Now, I got to tell you, and this is for the listeners also, on your website, thedoodlelady.com, there's a picture of you, and that is exactly what a meditator looks like. That is exactly what a long-term meditator looks like. That look that you have in that picture is so beautiful, I have to tell you, Carol.
Oh, thank you.
Your work shines right through it. So doodling neutralizes perfectionism. It kind of cancels it, doesn't it?
Well, I will acknowledge and call myself a recovering perfectionist. There are times I still stumble in the world and fall down, and I recognize, those are the times that I need to take push that pause button and take some deep breaths. But I've learned a lot. I know it sounds crazy to your listeners, but I'm sure you've heard this before. I would not take away that chapter of my life as I journeyed through cancer, because I discovered and learned so much about myself.
That is so powerful. If we could have that perspective when the crap was hitting the fan, right then, right in that moment, if we could say that, what you just said, how much better would our lives be?
Well, and at the same time, I will say one must always honor what one is feeling. And there are times that we just want to cry or scream. And at those times I say, pick up a plastic baseball bat, make sure no one else is in the bed, and take a good whack, We need to let that out of us. But at the same time, we then need to make sure we have strategies we have created so we can continue to walk through these unknown chapters or these stressful chapters.
I love how you say walk through, because it's a journey. It's almost like you're walking through a forest, the hero's journey in a way. And how you're going to handle the lions and tigers and bears is what it's all about, because there's going to be lions and tigers and bears. It's just how you handle them. Well,
the middle is so important. I think I don't think I ever really recognized how incredibly powerful we all are, because within each of us we have that sacred space where we can tap in to a wellspring of wisdom we already have, to courage, to faith, to trust. It's about, just believing that this too shall pass. There's somebody who, I love this quote from somebody that says, we need to learn to embrace uncertainty. Some of the most beautiful chapters in our lives won't have a title until much later. So this time we're living through right now, a pandemic, that's, we're not going to have great perspective of that till maybe sometime later. But what are the choices you are making in every moment of your day as you walk through? I was one that loved to have to-do lists. And I left the house one day with 6 things on my list. And I love to check them off, beginnings, middles, and ends, something that made sense. And then the first stop, when I came back to my car, I had a flat tire. And, it threw off the rest of the day, but in that moment of waiting what seemed like an endless amount of time for the auto club, I never leave home without paper and pen. So I happened to have my doodle book with me, and I just sat there. It's like, well, what can I do? I could sit here and call the auto club every second, or I could just, try and chill out.
So you just doodled.
I doodle.
That's
I doodle.
awesome. That's awesome, Carol. Man. I love the simple things. We talk a lot about the simple little things we could do, and it doesn't get any more simpler than doodling, and at the same time any more powerful because it's so simple. That's a reflection of its power, is its simplicity. Thank you so much for bringing that to everybody's attention. The Doodle Lady. How can people get a hold of you if they want to?
Absolutely, can reach me on the website, thedoodlelady.com. I'm very good about responding to people.
Great.
The book is up on Amazon. So there are many things that we can do to walk through these challenging times. What I love about doodling is it's so cost effective. You need pen and paper. You can do it most anywhere except when you're driving a car. And children can do it as well, which really creates a wonderful family activity during this time.
And the book is really powerful stuff. Just like doodling is simple and powerful, the book is simple and powerful as well. The healing power of doodling. Thank you so much, Carol. That was really inspiring and enlightening. Appreciate it. Have a beautiful day. All right, that's Carol Edmonston, and her book is The Healing Power of Doodling. Carol's the Doodle Lady. TheDoodleLady.com. Thanks for listening to The Bright Side. Check out our websites, brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com for longevity products, Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.